What a beautiful day here in Misano. It's the opening round of the 2016 Blancpain GT Series, and this first race is in the Sprint Cup. My name's Jack Nichols. Alongside me in the commentary box here on, well, a beautiful spring day in Italy down on the Adriatic coast is John Watson. Lovely to be here.
And as the song says, what a difference a day makes. I mean, awful, awful weather on Friday, rain all through the day. Now we've got almost 20 Celsius. Track temperature 36, but it's just the skies have opened up. Perfect conditions for the first time this weekend for the entire 39, and repeat, 39 car field to get onto this just over 4 kilometer long Misano circuit, 4.2 to be exact. And looking forward to seeing how all the competitors are going to deal with the volume of traffic, and that's what it's all about, managing the traffic on this circuit. 16 corners. And let's have a look at the layout of the Misano Adriatico racetrack. Long back straight with that kink to the right, then coming down into turns 13, 14. We saw a lot of action there last year. And then the final turn, turn 16, a corner where track limits don't appear to exist, but it is condoned because you're allowed to use the exit of the corner to complete the corner. The bogey corner for everybody on the racetrack, the one that they could suffer a penalty from if they abuse it on a regular basis, is the exit of turn 6. So we have to keep an eye as much as possible on anybody trying to sneak an advantage through turn 6.
So here's the start list, and you'll see there's quite a few Audis. Belgian Audi Club Team WRT have actually bought 6 Audis. Some of them are a little bit further down. We've got 2 from Phoenix, 2 Bentleys, this time with M Sport entering the Sprint Cup for the first time. A Kessel Ferrari, a Boots and Gignon BMW. That is actually the only 488 in the field. Then we've got some Grassa Racing Lamborghini Huracans. As you can see, the cars making their way out onto the circuit now. And there's actually 3 Lamborghini Huracans that we will be seeing in the race. Obviously, these are done in number order. And as the cars make their way out onto the circuit, we will have the first session. We've got the RJN Nissan GT Academy team here as well. 2 Audis from Scientolock Racing. A quarter of the grid is made up by Audis. A new Porsche 911 GT3R from Team A-Work. Sebastian Ash, former ADAC GT champion, will be driving that one in the Pro-Am class. AF Corsa have got a Ferrari 458. Garage 59, the new McLaren outlet, have brought 2 650Ss along to play. And then we've got the new Mercedes AMG, both HDP Motorsport and Acker ASP, bringing that brand here. 2 BMW M6s from Rowe Racing, with Philip Eng and Alexander Sims in one of the cars. A very strong lineup. And then just a couple more Lamborghini Huracans from the Attempto Racing team. Rinaldi are meant to be in their 488. It hasn't been arrived in time, so they will be in a 458 as last year. But last year it was good enough for them to take pole position and to win both races. And hopefully they can do something similar here today. But John, what a competitive qualifying session we're going to have. We've got the first drivers out on the circuit now. And nice to see we've got the RJN Nissan here, which... a Nissan in the hands of Sean Walkinshaw and Craig Dolby had a good run here last year. As across the line comes the 23 car then to start a lap, and Alex Buncombe is the defending endurance champion. We've got a defending endurance champion, 2 defending sprint champions in Vincent Abril and Maximilian Buch, and a defending overall champion in the shape of Robin Fraintz. It's going to be mighty competitive.
Yes, and also I think the biggest change to me is the number of new products that are coming in to this Blancpain Sprint Series GT Championship. It is just phenomenal. We're looking at the Nissan, we're familiar with that from last year, but we've now got the new Mercedes AMG GT, we've got the BMW M6, and looking at the M6, talk about a packaging exercise. That's taking GT racing interpretation almost into the realms of getting into what you'd call a silhouette GT. Engine low, way back in the chassis. Just looking at the way the exhaust from the turbos exit, I mean, it's a plumbing nightmare, but that's the direction. Even with all the Audis that are here, when you talk about all the Audi R8 LMSs, this is the car on screen. All the drivers are saying it is a big step forward on the previous model that they were racing, a little bit more secure, just more, the word I'm getting is, or 2 words, single-seater-like in the driving manners of these 2016 range of GT cars.
So this is Alex Buncombe at the wheel of the 23 Nissan we're seeing here, making his way towards the final part of the lap. Basically, in Q1 and then Q2. The quickest total lap times for 20 of the cars will go through towards Q3. The rest will have grid order set. So the first driver will be out in this session, which in this case is Alex Buncombe, as he comes across the line to do a 1:35.622. That's about 3 seconds off the pace we saw last year so far. But that is the first lap out on the circuit, and then the second drivers will go out in the second session, and then we will be left with a top 20 shootout for pole position. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us. Mick Ford joining us from Australia, so very good morning to you. That's good determination, I think, to be up with us. Do get in touch using the hashtag BlancpainGT as we watch the #1 car, Laurens van Thor and Frederik Vervisch, the two drivers in that car, and it's Vervisch at the wheel at the moment.
Yeah, just to look at the timing and scoring, we saw Alex Buncombe come across the line, the first car to record a flying lap. He already is now being demoted down to 6th place. It's the 88 car on a 1:34.3. Now, the racetrack is green. We had a lot of rain here on Friday. It's only been drying up through the morning. There are support events here, so there's a bit of a line going down, but of course nothing like the level of rubber we're going to see now being laid down on the racetrack. So the track over these 3 qualifying sessions is going to pick up time. Also, teams, because this is the first event of the season, will have 4 new sets of tyres for the weekend. So slightly different to maybe what we'll see later in the season. So a lot of new tyre usage, most likely in the first and final of the 3 qualifying sessions, and then trying to retain a new set of rubber for the sprint race this evening, and of course the main race on Sunday afternoon.
Yes, and it's going to be interesting because they have also not really used the new sets of tyres yesterday. So across the line goes the #1 WRT Audi of Frederik Vervisch to go quickest of anyone. Tristan Vautier is second at the moment in the 88 ACA Mercedes, but scrap that because Rob Bell just jumped up to 3rd in the McLaren. So we tend to find the second qualifying segment, Q2, is the quicker because you're not allowed to add any fuel from the start of Q1 to the end of Q3. So these guys are out there not exactly fuel burning, but the weight naturally gets lighter as we see the 84 Mercedes out there on the circuit at the moment.
Yeah, the Mercedes-Benz, big step forward from the previous model, the SLS. This is the AMG GT3, and a little bit more nimble. It's a shorter car, wheelbase is shorter. So on some circuits the SLS performed well, in other circuits maybe the tighter circuits didn't quite show its potential. Now with this new model from Mercedes, shorter on the wheelbase, as I say, it's easier to make direction changes. Car backing off now, just getting into traffic. So that's one of the very exciting, I think, and potential race-winning cars. But we've got everybody's a potential winning car this season. There's not a car out there that cannot win either a sprint or an endurance event.
So Frederik Vervisch, the quickest man at the moment. There is the 19 Lamborghini, the Grasso Racing entry, as it makes its way down towards the right-hander. That is the car that is shared by Lukas Stoltz. As he makes his way through the right-hander, Stoltz and Beretta at the wheel of that 19 Lamborghini. As he now comes through down the back straight, and we think it's Lukas Stoltz at the wheel at the moment. This is one of the cars competing in the Silver Cup. We've got quite a few entries actually in the Silver Cup this year, as he uses all the runoff area on the exit of turn 8, but is that allowed?
Yeah, I mean, whether there's red on the exit, that's being considered as acceptable. It's where you get into, particularly as I mentioned, turn 6, you see the red exit as the cars come out of turn 10, then on this back dog leg straight, and it's quite a turn as you go through turn 11. It's not, I mean, it's flat, but it's still quite a load. Then hard on the brakes as you come through 12 down into 13, where we're now watching the Lamborghini go. Then a second bigger brake into much tighter down to 2nd gear, turn 14, then flat through the flick to the left of 15 again. You can run just over the curbing, and the very shallow curbing. Fundamentally, this is a circuit that's been probably most used by motorcycling, MotoGP and superbikes that race here regularly. So the curbing is very low to give accommodation. So let's see where that Lamborghini finishes up.
26th in the end. This is the Craig Dolby and I've forgotten his name now. Give me 1 second. Martin Plowman, McLaren. And yes, one of the 2 Garage 59 entrants. A very late call this for Dolby and Plowman to get in the car. but they're here and they're looking forward to it. Dolby set the fastest lap of the race last year, albeit in a Nissan, but he certainly knows his way around this Misano circuit.
Yeah, but a totally different car to the Nissan he drove last year, the McLaren. I mean, the nearest car still, I suspect, to an out-and-out race car, but still has that propensity in certain situations. If you wring its neck, it'll stand on the nose and the back will step out. So for Craig Dolby and Martin Plowman, it's really a matter of learning the car. They've had really, I think, maybe other than a couple of laps before they came to Misano, no dry running whatsoever. All their running on Friday was in damp or wet conditions.
So that is 26th quickest, which soon became 27th quickest for the McLaren. Here now is the 99 Row Racing BMW M6, currently in 19th place. It's Philipp Eng at the wheel of that car at the moment, the defending Porsche Super Cup champion, but he hasn't improved in the first sector, and traffic is going to be a real challenge here. We've got Vervish Vautier, third at the moment is the 75 ISR Audi of Frank Stippler, and there's a puncture, and that is for the Leonard Meadows Silver Cup WRT Audi entry. So not good news for the pair of them, as they have to now limp back to the pit lane.
Yeah, and also what's even worse is that's a set of tyres, or certainly one of a rear set of tyres that is not going to be of any further use, and that is a disadvantage to that particular car.
Yeah, I thought we were doing well getting people joining us from Australia, but we've also got Stephen, who's in New Zealand, tuning in. Tommy's in Rosemount, Minnesota, watching us. So a very good morning to you, and hopefully you're enjoying the on-track action. It's very busy.
Well, let's hope we get somebody from Antarctica, because that would be a first, I think, in motorsport. A tweet from Antarctica.
Yes, so if you're watching in Antarctica, do get in touch using the hashtag BlancpainGT. Less than 5 minutes to go then. Here is Philipp Eng through the final corner, just backing off into that final corner to try and give himself some breathing room for the next lap. It did end up affecting the Ferrari behind by the looks of things, but might have just got away with it. Here is car number 28, Will Stevens and Rene Rast, the drivers in that 28 car, and at the moment Stevens, who's making his GT debut this weekend, the former Formula 1 driver, is 8th quickest.
Good job from Will Stevens, but remember, this man could have been in a WRT Audi this time last year, but an opportunity came to drive in Formula 1 and he stepped aside and took that up, but at the end of the 2015 season there was no place for him. So he was again engaged, and this time now under contract to drive for WRT Audi, and he and Rene Rast will make a very strong pairing. Yeah. Essex comes to Blancpain.
Certainly does. So here you can see the 333 Rinaldi Ferrari making its way around the circuit onto the brakes, and again just getting a bit of traffic from the A-Works Porsche up in front.
That was the Ferrari that last year that was really alive and a light all the way around the racetrack. Now here's turn 6. You've got to watch on the exit that you do not let the car go beyond the red on that sort of runoff, because that's where the penalties will be applied, and hard on the brakes down into turn 8. Get it in early and then run wide. And you can see again that red on the outside. You're allowed to use that. Then get the car straightened up again through the kink in 9. And then you're sort of on the brakes as you're sort of midway through the kink into 10. Good corner, but important corner to get a good drive off, because you're onto the quickest part of the racetrack, up to around about 250 to 255 kilometers per hour. The kink, the dog leg, turn 11, then flat out again, and just at this point, where do you get off the throttle and where do you get on the brakes? You don't want to do it if the car's slightly in a nose down, tail up attitude. Come into the tight right-hander of turn 14, then it starts to work its way left back to the start-finish straight. Left-hander at 15, then into the final corner at 16, or cut in early and come into the pit lane and rumble down past the commentary boxes on the left-hand side. There's the pit lane speed limit time, and the 333 car not in the top 20 at the moment. Well, already we're seeing messages for car 22. And that's the first of the two Nissan GTM Academy team, RJN and Ricardo Sanchez. Sean Walkinshaw, that car being warned about respect of the track limit. Surprise, surprise, at turn 6. Good performance so far from Dries Van Thor, Lawrence's younger brother, making his debut. He's currently 4th quickest at the moment, less than a second behind Frederick Vervish. So that's a good performance, only a tenth of a second behind Frank Stippler in the ISR Audi.
Who else have we got out in the top 10 that's impressive? In 6th place, we've got the 90 AF Corsa Ferrari, which is being driven by Perez Companc at the moment, and he is up there in 6th place ahead of Mike Parisi, who's 7th quickest. Will Stevens still in the top 10 as we're on board with the number 7 Bentley, trying to back off to find a little bit of space. It's Vanson. Oh, and in the gravel there is the 74 car, and that ISR of Marlon Stockinger has found its way into the gravel bed, and well, that's going to be session over. He's not going to get that one going, and that may actually conclude the session full stop with only a minute to go. No one really is going to be able to improve. That's on the run down through 12 and 13. Lost it quite early then, hasn't he?
Well, I think it's the usual story. You're coming off the throttle, hitting the brakes, and the car gets unloaded, all the weight goes to the outside front, and the back starts to pivot, and once it's gone, well, that's where you're going to end up. The red flag has been shown. The session has been concluded with only 40 seconds or so remaining, so session 1 is over.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is the end of the first qualifying session, and Frederick Vervisch is the man then that ends it quickest of all, and his lap time in Q1, a 33.313. So that is good work from Frederick Vervisch. Tristan Vautier, 2nd quickest in the 88 ACA Mercedes, and that is a very, very strong pairing who are going to be joining that, but now you can see them getting towed out. The session will not resume, and the session is over, so tough luck there, but Vervisch the man who is quickest. And well, John, he came in at the final round in Zandvoort last year to fill in for Laurens Vanthoor, did a superb job, and now here he is in the number 1 car, and there we go, he's already backwards.
Yeah, he had lost it in that little kink, just sort of, what is it, 12, and it's a balance as to where you brake, whether you do it progressively and gently, or you do it rather aggressively, and in consequence, you lose the back of the car before you even get to the apex of turn 13. I mean, I think the most impressive run of all that was Dries Van Thor in 4th place, 17 years old. Let me just tell you a story about Dries Van Thor. The authorities here were unsatisfied with his, how can you say, the approval of being allowed to race. So his dad had to come down from Belgium to sign an authority to say he was allowed to compete this weekend. 17-year-old. And the other story about Dries Van Thor, I think that's very interesting, is that he did a series last year, I think Formula Renault, given support by the Royal Belgium Automobile Club. At the end of last season, they decided, let's go GT racing. Our future's there.
And the Belgian Audi Club have ended quickest of anyone. Frederick Vervisch setting the time. Laurens Vanthoor will be in the car later on. Tristan Vautier, 2nd quickest. Frank Stippler, 3rd in that ISR Audi. Dries Vanthoor, who we were just talking about, 4th. Dominic Baumann, 5th quickest in that HTP Mercedes. Raffaele Giammaria ending 6th quickest. Then we've got the Mike Parisi, Christopher Haas ISR gang. The first of the McLarens in 8th. In the hands of Rob Bell. The first Lamborghini in 9th in the hands of Mirko Bortolotti. Will Stevens completing the top 10. Good run from Niki Melnov actually to be 11th quickest. Clem Schmidt and Jasmine Jafar, another of the 3 HTP Mercedes entries, then completing the top 12. And who else have we got to watch out for down here? 13th for Vincent Abril. Not too bad for him. Nikolai Muller-Madsen and Marcus Pommer in the other Phoenix Audi, finishing in 15th place in that particular session. But it's all about getting through to the top 20 at the end of Q2. You can see Marlon Stockinger there, who was pushing very, very hard in that 74 car until the 25-year-old man from the Philippines put it in the gravel. Stefan Rossini and Jeroen Bleekemolen completing the top 20. And these results go on a little bit, don't they? Michael Broniszewski finishing in 25th place. Only 26th for Marco Seefried in the 333 Rinaldi Ferrari 458. So that's an interesting one to watch out for. Maxime Soule, only 27th quickest in the 2nd of the M Sport Bentleys. We've got Plowman and Dolby there down in 31st place. Davide Valsecchi, haven't even mentioned him, but he and Jack Faller are partnering each other in an Attempto Racing Lamborghini in the Pro-Am class. And the slowest of anyone in the cars that didn't really seem to get a lap in, because to be 7.8 seconds off the pace, it's Didi Gonzalez, who's a last-minute replacement in that Porsche. It was due to be Ulrich in that car, but it's now Didi Gonzalez. So that's the runners, but we tend to see the overall quickest times coming in Q2. We had some side-by-side action between some Lamborghinis out on circuit, but again, John, we bring a massive grid, but WRT car number 1 is the quickest.
Well, I suspect that WRT, the most organised team in the pit lane, but everybody is upping their game. WRT, I believe, did have a test here prior to the season start, which will have given them a big advantage because the running yesterday, as we mentioned, was in either wet or semi-wet, damp conditions. There's the problem that we saw from Stuart Leonard there, the final. Well, that was the reason why the session came to an end, a red flag down at turn 13.
And it's spin at the final corner
Yes,
as well.
that's the first time we saw that one.
I think that might have been Felipe Albuquerque at the wheel of that number 3 car that he is sharing with Rodrigo Baptista. Actually, no, that would have been Baptista, wouldn't it, having the spin. The 19-year-old Brazilian. A lot of youngsters choosing GTs, John, as a way to go quite early in their career now.
Well, I think they're having to make judgments, and part of that judgment is, first of all, have we got the funding, or can we get the funding to follow a career in single-seater racing? Temperatures dropped, ambience come down a little bit. Track temperature just under 25.
Looks a bit threatening, doesn't it?
The humidity is 66%, so there is a bit of cloud forming. Now that could be more of a problem later this evening when we have the sprint race. I don't think it's going to come into play in qualifying, but everybody will have to be aware that the weather has been changeable. It was glorious, the start of that first qualifying session, but it has just bit by bit clouded over. But
yes.
Just to go back to this issue about kids, youngsters whose dream is ultimately to end up in Formula One, understandable. The realities of it are that to get there, you've got to go through a series of junior formulas. There's only going to be one Max Verstappen probably per decade. Therefore, you're going to have to invest, in many cases, millions of pounds, euros, dollars to get your darling into a position where he's going to be recognized. And in the case of Van Thor, Dries Van Thor, his family have said, look, we believe you can have a wonderful career being a part of WRT. I mean, 17 years old, to be a part of this team, to end up 4th quickest is, I think, remarkable. And it just shows whatever the genes that the Van Thor family have, they're certainly passing it on to their 2 sons.
Certainly so, and they've probably learned a bit from Lawrence Van Thor, who won the German Formula 3 championship back in 2009, but just ran out of opportunities. But as you say, Dries Van Thor with an impressive pedigree. He did Formula Renault North European Cup last year, finished 6th in that championship in what was his first year in car racing, taking a win at Assen along the way. But you were just pointing at those storm clouds, John. The qualifying race gets underway at 10 to 9 local time tonight. We will be on a little bit before that to bring you all the build-up to the race, but the race gets underway at 10 to 9, and I wouldn't be surprised if we've had some rain by then. Whether it's raining at that time, who knows, but the forecast is storms about 7 o'clock this evening.
Yes, it's allowed a unexpected or maybe unwelcome mix, because I don't think we've ever seen a grid of GT cars as large as we have here this weekend, and for all 38 cars to make a clean start, bearing in mind it will be a rolling start, I imagine that there'll still be some of the back of the grid, let's call them tail enders, back of the grid coming round turn 6, round 16, when the lights go out on the main start-finish gantry. So into turn 1, we didn't have much problem in turn 1 last year, but it was turn 2 where everybody managed to trip over everybody else.
So Q2 gets underway then here in Misano, and this is where they stick the fast drivers in the cars, because at the moment these cars are the lightest that they have been, and it's René Rast, the first man out onto the circuit for the WRT Audi team. They get to the end of the pit limiter and then unleash the cars out onto the circuit. No longer do they have to travel at just 50 kilometers an hour. They can start to stretch their legs, trying to get some space, but this is where we see our big hitters, the likes of Laurens Van Thor, the likes of Marcus Winkelhock, the likes of Stephen Kane, René Rast, Christopher Mies. The list will go on, and I won't do the full list because we could be here for quite some time.
Maxi Book.
Happy
to be back in a Mercedes.
Yeah, I can imagine. Maxime Martin as well is here in the Pro-Am class. So he, although he won't be in contention for sort of race victories in the Boots and Gignon BMW, he's partnering it with Henkeler. he could well be in contention for a pole position, or at least battling at the front in the early stages.
Well, I mean, it's a great opportunity for Maxime Martin to drive the new M6 BMW with that twin-turbo V8 engine. I mean, almost sitting in the cockpit with the driver, because inevitably Maxime Martin's sights will be set further into the year at Spa-Francorchamps for the famous 24-hour event there. So getting some race experience, albeit with an driver, that he will get a feel for what the car is doing in a race context.
So across the line they come then to start their first flying laps, and it's René Rast who's the first man out onto the circuit. Then behind him is that Acker Racing Mercedes that swings through the right-hander, then into the left. And it's Felix Rosenqvist, the defending Formula 3 European champion at the wheel.
Could you have a better pedigree than that? I mean, that's what I'm really excited about. Aside from seeing some incredible GT cars, is the quality of the professional drivers, whether they are at the age of Felix Rosenqvist or even younger, going all the way down to, we've been banging the drum about Dries van Thor, but lots of young guys who never in their imaginations ever felt that this is something they would be able to be a part of, delighted to join in GT cars that are evolving more by the season than, you know, I call them almost now silhouette GT cars. They're not really meant to be that, but that's engineering evolution.
Well, Stefan Racina was saying he's racing the Lamborghini Huracan. He's had a couple of years off after a brief retirement, and he used to race the Lamborghini Gallardo. Only sort of, I think it was 2012, he and Peter Cox won a race in FIA GT1 in Zolder, and he said even since 2012, they're different cars now. They're so much more improved, even though fundamentally they're all still GT3 cars.
They are GT3 cars, but the engineering has just drawn them closer to turn the wheel and the car follows the wheel, whereas in the early days of GT racing, you turn the wheel and you wait for it to follow the wheel. So they're becoming much, much more sophisticated. I mean, just on the suspension side alone, the damping that they're using, much more sophisticated than you might in the normal GT3 car that you might, as I happened to do the other day. We'll not talk about that. You know, they're just really, really sophisticated race cars now.
So down into the right-hander comes the 85 HTP Mercedes, and that is the Clem Schmidt Jasmine Jafar entry. And at the moment in the 85 car, it is Jasmine Jafar, the former British Formula 3 racer that is out there. Finished second in British Formula 3 back in 2012 to Jack Harvey, I think, in that season. And Jafar at the wheel of that 85 HTP Mercedes that's making its way down towards the long sequence of turns 9 and turns 10. Good morning to Cameron as well, who's joining us from New Zealand. People from all over the world tuning in and being very excited about what has to be the most competitive GT field in the world.
Well, that car 58 and car 88 have both been given warnings about exceeding track limits, surprisingly, at turn 6. So fastest lap so far, Christopher Ramis, 134.1, and that's what 7/10 of a second slower than Frederic Verviche achieved in Q1. So this is the problem. You're on an out lap, and in lap you're going to have to drive almost looking backwards to ensure that you're not impeding a car that's on a flying lap. Yep. So the two Nissans out in tandem. Sean Walkinshaw in the number 22. So let's keep an eye and see where that car 23 is the sister car. It was in 15th place, dropped down to 16. Sean Walkinshaw was 18th. Now he's been bumped down to 20th. So literally cars, as they come across the start-finish line to complete their first or their second flying laps, are superseding those that are just ahead.
So we were just seeing a look at the Phoenix Audi of Marcus Finkelhock a couple of moments ago. We've got a very good lap coming in from Alvaro Parent. This is the 59 McLaren, which is at the moment in the hands of Craig Dolby. But the sister car, which is now coming towards the final corner, is going to be looking very, very quick in the hands of Alvaro Parent. There you can see it moving a lot as he came through the left-hander of 15. Personal bests in sectors 1 and 2, using all the road on the exit. What's this lap time going to be for Alvaro Parent? Across the line he comes, and it's quickest, a 1:33.6. Still 0.3 of a second slower than Frederic Verviche's run in the first part of qualifying, though. But still, a good lap, and it shows McLaren are there or thereabouts.
Yeah, and Alvaro Parent had to deal with traffic towards the tail of the lap, and that can account for maybe a couple or 3/10 of a second with 38 cars or 39 cars potentially on the circuit at one time. Just finding a clear lap is more about luck than judgment.
Christopher Hasse jumps up to third in the Sinterlock Audi. At the moment, it's Maximilian Buch who's just gone second quickest then in that 84 HDP Mercedes. He and Dominic Baumann won the GT3 European Championship for that team back in 2012. Stefan Racina goes second quickest in the 88. No, sorry, that's Felix Rosenquist. My apologies. Felix Rosenquist goes second quickest in the ACA ASP Mercedes. Great lap from Rosenquist. We've got the top 7 covered by half a second at the moment. And here now is the 99 car in the hands of Alexander Sims, the Row Racing BMW, in the hands of the man who is a BMW factory driver. Raced for them in the British GT Championship over the years. And very impressive at Macau in Formula 3 last year. As he personal best in Sector 1 though at 24.7. 3/10 slower than Alvaro Parent managed in that first sector. Of course, what we do see over the course of the year is that different circuits suit different tracks, different cars.
Yeah, I mean, this is a circuit that's got to suit fundamentally the slightly smaller, more nimble cars, and in that you've got to sort of say, I mean, the McLaren obviously ticks that box, the Audi likewise, things like the Bentley, the Nissan, maybe the Mercedes and the BMW are physically larger cars in every sense, you know, they're longer, wider, a bigger frontal area, so this is more of your sort of single-seater style, quick turn, get on the gas, whereas the BMWs and others may suit the more open flowing circuits, such as we're going to go to Silverstone for the second round of the Enduro Championship in May, and of course thinking forward to the 24 Hours of Spa, again a circuit that will suit this car maybe more than we're seeing it here in Misano.
So through the final corner comes Alexander Sims. What's this lap time going to be for the 99 BMW across the line? And it's 18th quickest then, 1.1 seconds down on Alvaro Parent. The top 14 cars are covered by a second at the moment. This is going to be incredibly tight in qualifying now, let alone later on. As all big twitch into turn 1 then for Christopher Mies. Gets it stopped though in time.
Yeah, seen it. I mean, that was a late break and trying to get the car turned at the same time. And that's ultimately one of the areas of the Audi you've got to be aware of. Christopher Mies, very familiar, having done so many different championships in a variation of the Audi R8 LMS and back to 98. So let's have a look and see.
Laurens van Thor's done a purple middle sector in this number 1 WRT Audi. Here he comes now towards the final corner on the circuit. He has got some traffic up in front, but I don't think it's going to affect him. The Belgian turns through the final corner, runs really, really wide, and the 24-year-old is going to come across the line. Is it going to be the quickest time of all? Yes, it is, a 1 minute 33.474, but still slower than Q1.
Interesting. I mean, I would have thought the track would have picked up a little bit of time between the end of Q1 and the back end of Q2. We've got 5.5 minutes remaining. So,
and the cars will have lost fuel and lost weight.
It depends. I suspect everybody's running on the set of tyres they ran in Q1, which may partly explain it. In Q3, the teams have nominated their drivers, so you're going to get all what I would describe as the Van Thors, Michael Meadows, Philippe Albuquerque, Robin Freins, Marcus Winkelhock. They will probably run a new set of tyres because they've all got 4 new sets of tyres for this weekend, and then they'll keep back 2 further sets for tonight, assuming it's dry, and for tomorrow, assuming it's dry as well.
Jasmine Jafar then, currently 12th quickest. The 23-year-old Malaysian, you can see he's 12th quickest by the panel on the top of the windscreen. As you look at it, it's the panel up at the top left is showing the current position of the cars, which is very useful in these qualifying sessions, I must say. Saves me trying to scan through 39 cars on a timing screen. I can just say the 28 car at the moment is 24th in the hands of René Rast, which, well, he's done personal bests in sectors 1 and 2, so let's see what Rast can do now as he comes towards the final corner. 3-time Porsche Super Cup champion exits the final turn, and what are we going to see from René Rast? It was neat and tidy. Is it enough to move him up the order? It's enough for 5th place. Good lap from Rast.
Yeah, basically this segment of qualifying has been dominated by the Audis. McLaren caught in second place, and then it's Rosenquist and Maximilian Buch in the 2 brand new AMG GT Mercedes-Benz. And there is Buch as he comes across the line, a little flick at the tail. He really had, Max Buch has had a big smile, still in 4th place, didn't make any improvement. but a big smile on his face when I spoke to him yesterday. I think as much as he enjoyed his Bentley experience and, you know, great car, and Vincent Abril made a very good pairing, but he's content to be back in the team that gave him that championship back in 2014.
Yes, absolutely, as we're on board with the 23 Nissan, which at the moment is in the hands of Takaboshi, coming now towards the final corner, currently down in 29th place. And he comes through now, only 23 years old, Takaboshi, but he's raced in Japanese F3, finished third in the championship there, was racing in Super GT last year, and he remains in 26th place despite that big build-up as the two M Sport Bentleys now come towards the final corner. Felix Rosenquist has done a purple in the first sector, a personal best in the middle sector, so we'll keep an eye out on that one as here comes Stephen Kane across the line in the number 7 M Sport Bentley, and he goes 24th quickest.
24th? I mean, you put Wunderkind, Stephen Kane into the Bentley and it just lights up the racetrack. Well, again, it's a physically large car and they certainly have not found the sweet spot. And remember, of course, the Bentley, the factory Bentley team M Sport didn't race here last year. It was the WHT Motorsport team that ran the Bentleys in sprint.
Felix Rosenquist, we just saw him coming into turn 1, having gone quickest, 1 minute 33.312 in the ACA Mercedes, still slightly slower than Q1. Here is Rosenquist. Robin Freitz is now second quickest. Max Buch in the HDP Mercedes is third quickest. Lawrence Van Thor has been shuffled down to fourth, and he is in the pits, so that'll be the last attempt from Lawrence Van Thor to get through into the next part of qualifying. Then we've got Rene Rast in 5th, Alvaro Parent in 6th. Michael Meadows is up in 7th place at the moment. Really good lap for him. He's a silver-ranked driver, mixing it with the golds and the platinums. And as it stands, that's pole in the Silver Cup, which is a competition within the pro class for 2 silver-ranked drivers.
And I think that performance, Michael Meadows 7th on a 133.7, is really indicative of what the performance and the competition of British GT racing is. Because effectively, that's where Michael Meadows has done most of his racing, either in Porsche Super Cup or in GT racing in the UK. And a good, strong performance. He'll be happy. In fact, he'll be delighted with that. There's still a minute and just under 20 seconds of this session remaining.
But to be only 3/10 off Robin Freitz, your WRT teammate, is very impressive. Meadows, 2-time Porsche Carrera Cup champion in Great Britain. Who else have we got looking quick at the moment? It's personal bests so far around this lap for Philippe Albuquerque. And he is currently 17th quickest, so this could see him jump up into the top 10. We've now got 18 cars covered by 9/10 of a second. 18 cars covered by 9/10 of a second.
I wish it was more competitive. But I'm really impressed. Felix Rosenquist in the Mercedes, fastest overall by, okay, a 10th of a second or so. But first race, he's obviously driven the car, he's had time in the car, but nevertheless, that is a strong performance. Again, it's an indicative trend I think we're going to see more and more and more of as the season progresses, with younger guys coming into GT racing. And some of the more established drivers who've always had a career in GT racing might be looking over their shoulder and thinking, and there is a problem.
Oh yes.
Number 87. So a Mercedes, that is Morgan Moulin-Truffaut.
No, actually, I think that's the running clock we were looking at. This is I think that's Jasmine. It's Jasmine Jafar that's come to a stop there. I think here's Bernd Schneider now coming through the final corner. I think it's Jasmine Jafar that was the Mercedes that has come to a halt on the circuit. Across the line comes the 86 car and goes 14th quickest now for Bernd Schneider.
Not bad for a senior citizen.
Absolutely not. So the checker flag is out.
Is that a left rear problem for the Audi coming in? It's hard to tell. Look slightly down on their left rear, but it's irrelevant. He's in the pit lane. Checkered flag is out. So we can finish your lap. So finish your time.
Yes, absolutely. But we haven't actually got anyone who's on a quick lap at the moment, especially with that yellow flag out for the Jasmine Jafar Mercedes in that final sector. Looked like a mechanical problem rather than anything else, which will be a concern for anyone who's just gone out and bought a new Merc.
Well, we don't know what the reason is, but it did look like there was something coming from under the bonnet area, whether that was it could be quite simply as a hose splitting, or maybe it could be something slightly more serious, but whether the car will be able to get back to the pits and be looked at by the team and ready to get out into this final qualifying segment, which of course is only 10 minutes long, and it's only the top 20 that will take. take part.
Absolutely. Jasmine Jafar at the moment 19th, so it's a combination of Q1 and Q2 times, so we'll have to wait and see whether that car would have got through. It's going to be on the bubble, but Felix Rosenqvist then ending that second session the quickest, but still not beating Frederick Vervisch's, actually he did by 1,000th of a second. Vervisch did a 33.313, Rosenqvist did a 33.312 in that last session.
Just watching the Nissan coming back into the pits, they'll be disappointed. Best place so far, 23, Nissan is in 28th, and the 22 car down in 35th, so Nissan not having the kind of weekend so far that we saw last year, and with Craig Dolby and Sean Wolkinshaw and that sort of duck egg blue JRM entered Nissan. It was a star of the race, but so far Nissan scratching their heads a bit.
So this is just Q2 only, not the combined times, and it's Felix Rosenqvist who is the quickest man in that second session, and therefore the quickest man overall. Second place for Robin Frates, third was Maximilian Buch, fourth for Laurence Van Thor. Very good lap time actually from Morgan Moulin-Trafort, the Frenchman who's partnering Jean-Luc Bobelic in the Pro-Am ACA Motorsport Mercedes, but he's fifth quickest, so that's a very good effort. René Rast ending sixth quickest, just a quarter of a second between the top six. Alvaro Parent, good to see him up there. It's a startling amount of Audis, isn't it, in that top 12 from Sainz-Loc, Belgian Audi Club and ISR. So a good spread amongst the teams, but a lot of Audi R8s in that top 12. Then we'll have to wait and see when we get official confirmation of who the cars are that will be going through to the pole position shootout in, well, just about 5 minutes time from now. You can see a little bit further down then, who do we see struggle in that one? The 6 Phoenix Audi of Marcus Winkelhock didn't get the best lap, 15th place. They're going to be on the bubble. Rinaldi, will they be able to make it through to the final pole shootout? We will have to wait and see. Then the first of the Lamborghini Huracans is the 19 car, which is that of Michele Beretta. That's an impressive time because they're entering the Silver Cup. And then Bentley's 8th quickest for Andy Soucek, and he was the quickest of the two Bentleys. Stephen Kane ended that session down in 27th place, but as we say, some circuits will suit them more than others, and of course this is the opening round of the Blancpain GT series as well, so there's a lot more to play for than just the Sprint Cup. You've got the Endurance Cup as well, and combined they'll create the overall GT series. And when we get to Silverstone and when we get to Monza and when we get to Spa, the Bentleys will be looking strong.
Again, it's the sort of circuit I think that the physically larger cars are going to feel more comfortable with. This circuit is more of a single-seater circuit in the way that it combines the corners. It's the length of the circuit. No one what I'd call long, fast corner, such as we've got at Silverstone, where you can get the car settled and then the car can just track its own way through.
So we've got a few raindrops on the lens down at turn number 1. Doesn't look too bad at the moment. There's not particularly a heavy cloud covering, maybe a little bit of drizzle here and there. And there you can see there are some clouds.
Yeah, there is a bit of cloudiness coming down. I'm trying to think I think that's coming from the south if I'm oriented properly. And what was beautiful blue sky now is closing in. So maybe that little drop of rain on the camera lens, which we got there a second ago, might be indicative of what could happen within the next 12 or so minutes.
So that was the man who ended the session quickest, Felix Rosenqvist. The Bentleys struggled just a little bit, and then we had some really tight action out there as people tried to get some room. That was the 11 Kessel Ferrari of Piccini making some room, a 2-time Italian GT champion. This was Alvaro Parent who ended the session strongly, running a little bit wide at the final corner, but getting the job done. Oh, that was a little bit too close for comfort for Michael Meadows as well. But a good lap nevertheless from Meadows. Laurence Van Thor couldn't improve and go quickest. René Rast had a reasonable run to 6th quickest in the WRT car. Alexander Sims, oh, lock up there from, that was the 98 car actually, so that was in the hands of Nick Katzberg. Unusual to see a GT3 car lock up like that. They'll be looking at that when the car gets back to the garage, and that was some smoke coming out of the side of Jasmine Jafar's HDP Mercedes. Not Not ideal, that.
No, that to me maybe looked more like a brake issue, that maybe something had happened with one of the discs or one of the pads. More blue looking than I don't think it was an engine, but we'll have to wait and see once the car is brought back to the pits if it is a quick fix or whether it might be something more serious. Wind direction, just got all the information. It's coming from the northeast. Where the rain's coming from, I have no idea, but I assume it's going to be somewhat similar. Track temperature 21.1, air temperature 17.2, humidity increasing, it's just under 70%, so that does give us an indication that there is a bit of rain on the way.
We've got 1 minute and 10 seconds until the final pole position session begins, as the cars are now making their way out. So these are the cars that have made it through to Q3. You've got Tristan Vautier and Felix Rosenquist's car. They ended the session quickest. Then it'll be Lawrence Van Thor out there as well with Robin Freins. Max Buch and Dominic Baumann through to Q3. Jean-Luc Bobelic and Morgan Moulin-Trafford. Great work from them. René Rast will be going out for the number 6 car. Before the race, they have to nominate who it will be, and we have a list of who the drivers are that are going to be out onto the circuit, and we'll just keep through towards the top 20. Then the 3 car getting through. The 333 Rinaldi did make it onto the final qualifying group, as did Bernd Schneider. It'll be Norbert Siedler starting that 333 car. Franck Pereira getting that 74 ISR car through as well. And Marcus Pommer and Nikolai Moller-Madsen doing a good job to get into the top 20. So no, neither of the M Sport Bentleys through to Q3, but a lot of Audis, some Lamborghinis, some Mercedes. This is going to be a very tight battle, John.
Well, we've got 10 minutes, and I would imagine everybody will be coming out at the earliest opportunity, and I would imagine they will be on a new set of tyres, because that's where your time will come. Your first flying lap, if you get a clear lap, ought to be your best lap. That's the point when the tyre's going to give you the maximum amount of grip. And you know, by coming out first, you hope that the 20 cars have all made their way onto the field before you get to complete that first flying lap. It doesn't often happen, but that's the wish. So everybody makes their way down at 50 kilometers per hour to the pit lane exit. One Bentley has certainly got through. That's the
so there is a Bentley. My apologies. So that must have been the first lap set by Maxime Soulet that has seen that car go through to the next session. We've got 9 minutes and 10 seconds to go. Then in Q3, as they head out onto the track for this final qualifying run.
Well, people trying to get temperature into the tyre. Remember, these tyres, there's no rain. Look, wipers going on the Audi as they come down into turn 8. So it's not raining as such, but there must be raindrops around, and that was just a way of giving a little bit more clear vision. But there is the signal that if you don't get it done in your first flying lap, you may not get another opportunity. 8.5 minutes only remaining. So by the time the cars come back onto start-finish straight, most likely they'll be just under the 8 minutes. So they'll get 1 flying lap, maybe 2 at best. And if they want to go into the pits, they're probably going to see the end of their session.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way. So it's not going to be... these tyres can do 2 or 3 flying laps before they really start to lose their time. With the weight loss from the fuel and the tyre degradation, the first flying lap, the second flying lap are about similar, but rain, windscreen wipers are heading on Felix Rosenquist's car, that 88 Acker ASP Mercedes. Wow, this could get slippery.
Well, he's got this lap to get it done, because if he's got the wipers on, his are working consistently. I don't know if anybody else behind has decided to run their wipers, but Felix Rosenquist knows what he's got to do. He's got a clear track ahead of him, and he's got to make the best of it, because this could be a pole position on his debut.
Absolutely, what a performance that would be from Rosenquist, the 2 times Macau Grand Prix winner. Then you've got Marcus Pommer behind in the 88 car, and here is Rosenquist coming through the right-hander. Sorry, it's the number 5 car for Marcus Pommer behind, the orange Phoenix Racing machine. He's a Formula 3 race winner, so these two, Rosenquist and Pommer, battled it out in Formula 3 last season, and let's see what Rosenquist has got. We may expect the lap times to be slightly slower because of the treacherous conditions out there.
Well, nobody else seems to have their wipers working, so maybe Rosenquist has put the wiper on to clear the screen, and he's sort of maybe forgotten that the wipers, your vision is so much further down the road. He's not really looking at what's happening directly in front of him, but he comes up into the final corner to complete his flying lap.
Here comes Rosenqvist then, across the line in the 88 ACA Mercedes. What's the lap time going to be? A 1 minute 33.770. That's reasonable. Marcus Pommer goes 0.4 of a second slower, but Marcus Winkelhock has been on a good lap as he exits the final corner in the Phoenix Audi. What's it going to be for Winkelhock? Robin Freins goes quickest of all on a 33.5. Winkelhock goes second quickest.
Alvaro, this is the guy to watch. Alvaro Parent, fastest in that middle sector. So gets a good exit out of turn 16.
Across the line comes Alvaro Parent in the McLaren 650S. Is it good enough for the quickest? Yes, it is. 1 minute 33.475. Next up, Maximilian Buch, defending Sprint Series champion, now racing this season in the Sprint Cup and the overall GT Series. Still with HDP, back with Mercedes. Norbert Siedler's gone second quickest in the 333 Rinaldi Ferrari. Across the line comes Maximilian Buch. Are we going to see a good lap from him? It's fifth. But this man, Laurens van Thor, best middle sector of anyone, even though he was 0.4 down in sector 1. So this is there or thereabouts for Laurens van Thor as he slides out of the penultimate corner.
Magic out of turn 15, a full four-wheel drift. And again, that's because there is a small amount of moisture on the track, just took a little bit away from the Audi. He goes quickest, 33.262. That is the quickest lap of the day to date, of the weekend.
0.2 of a second quicker than Alvaro Parent. Now then, here comes the number 3 Audi towards the final corner. Philippe Albuquerque at the wheel, but I don't think he's had a particularly... This is his out lap, so no need to get excited about that one as he comes across the line. So at the moment it's Van Thor, Parent, Siedler, Freins, Winkelhock, Buch, Rosenqvist, the top 7. And here is the Bentley out there, which is, well, 6th quickest at the moment, according to the 8 car, but the 8 car isn't appearing on the timing screen, so we're just having a little bit of trouble locating that for you as he comes across the line. Can't really tell you where Maxime Soulet is because he's not appearing on the screens at the moment. 4.5 minutes to go in Q3, and as it stands, Laurens van Thor would be on pole position, but not for much longer because across the line comes the 74 ISR Audi, and Franck Pereira, the 32-year-old Frenchman, has gone quickest of anyone now.
And where did that one come from? We weren't even following him on screen.
And Christopher Hasse has got personal bests in sectors 1 and 2 as he now comes through into the left-hander. What's this going to be for Christopher Hasse? Former GT3 European champion. Across the line, can he get into the mix? No, he can't. 12th for the Audi, the Sainteloc Audi.
But 12th, he's only 3/4 of a second away from Frank Pereira's times. I mean, it's so close, less than a second, 3/4 of a second between the top 12.
The top 3 covered by 0.08 of a second at the moment. Franck Pereira, Laurens van Thor and Alvaro Parent. 3 different cars as well. 2 Audis and a McLaren, but then you've got the Ferrari of Norbert Siedler, not too far behind either. We've got a few spots of rain on our commentary box window now as well. It's still not really enough to make too much of a drama. There is Franck Pereira. Fantastic lap from him. He has had a pole position before at Silverstone in the Blancpain Endurance Series a couple of years ago in a Porsche, but this is his first appearance in the Sprint Cup.
Well, he's gone into the pits. He's done his afternoon's work, and the track conditions marginally worse towards the end of the straight. That's where it seems that the weather is a little bit more tricky. No, he stayed out. I thought he might have, maybe he's going in a very late cut to go back into the pits. So provisional pole sitter with just under 3 minutes remaining is back into the pits, and it's unlikely that time, 1 minute 33.199, will be challenged.
We'll have to see if Pereira goes back out on a new set of tyres potentially, because he's got enough time to get back out there.
Yeah, but why would he? I mean, he's going to have to go out and do an out lap to go on to a single flying lap. I would keep the tyres. I mean, okay, Laurens van Thor currently second quickest, 0.06 of a second behind.
But look at the rain.
That's why I wouldn't be fussed about going out.
Yeah, you can see the lines being drawn down the straight as the rain comes down here then, and that will effectively end this qualifying session, I would have thought. We'll keep an eye out on the lap times just in case that changes, but it looks as though that is going to be the end of this qualifying session. And Franck Pereira for the ISR Audi team, who have been in the Sprint Cup for the last couple of years, never really had a very good run at all, quite frankly. But now they've got a pole position by the looks of things.
I would say it's a done deal with track conditions, and you're not even seeing a small amount of spray coming off the front wheel of the Ferrari coming out of turn 6 through 7, then into the tighter 8, and is that the
yes?
That's the 488, the twin turbocharged Ferrari.
And you can see loads more aero on it as well. That's the most noticeable difference on the bonnet, on the side, over the wheels as well. A lot more aero devices than on the 458.
Well, let's hope it makes a noise not dissimilar to what the 458 was. That 458 Ferrari engine was a screamer. There we see the oil flag, but that's really more, it's not an oil flag, it's an indication that it's a slippery surface. So everybody's got the message. 1 minute remaining, everybody's going to go back into the pit lane, and we have got...
But it's not over yet.
Why?
Car 74, Frank Pereira, time cancelled for track limits, and that means Laurens Vanthoor is the man who will start on pole position for the qualifying race later on today. The WRT Audi driver, a 1 minute 33.262, and Frank Pereira, he will end up starting in 11th place. Such disappointment for the ISR team, and well they've been strict about track limits.
Well, in fairness, the drivers were told in the driver briefing to observe track limits. We have noticed a number of drivers have been given warnings on their timing and scoring, but obviously in the case of Frank Pereira, it was one time too many, and the penalty is he's gone from being the man. He is the man. He did a great job. He did a great time, but how much of that time was gained by excessive use of the exit of turn 6? And other drivers would say, well, you know, I know he could have made up 0.3 of a second because I tried it, and that's what it is.
Yes, absolutely.
They're cruel lot, drivers. You know, they don't give any of their competitors any slack at all.
So that concludes the first qualifying session of the Blancpain GT Series season, and what a cracker it was. We didn't quite get the crescendo we were hoping for because of the rain that started to drizzle in towards the end of the session, but we have got a very entertaining grid lined up for the qualifying race, which is coming up later on today. 10 to 9 local time, the start of the qualifying race. It's a night race under the floodlights here in Misano. It was spectacular last year, and Laurens Vanthoor was the man who had a massive accident last year that knocked him out of contention for the final round in Zandvoort. That was because he had to start at the back of the grid thanks to an engine problem and carve his way through. But later on today, he's going to be starting at the front of the grid. And it is a Audi on pole, a McLaren second, a Ferrari third. So fantastic to see 3 brands in the top 3 positions. We've also got the top 15 cars covered by less than a second. Here are the results at the end of qualifying. The number 1 WRT Audi of Laurens Vanthoor will be starting on pole position. Then second, the McLaren 650S, Alvaro Perrin. Great job from him to be just 0.15 of a second further back. Norbert Siedler and Marco Seefried, third quickest for them. Then fourth for Robin Freins in the next of the WRT Audis. Giacomo Piccini doing a good job to qualify 5th. That car is in Pro-Am, so they're going to be up there. And then Mikhail Broniszewski will take over, and it'll start to slip down the order a little, I would have thought. Marcus Winkelhock qualifying in 6th. Max Boot, 7th. They'll be reasonably happy with that, I think. HTP just ahead and out qualifying, in fact, the ACA Mercedes of Felix Rosenquist. Then we've got Mike Parisi and Christopher Haas in 13th place there. Marcus Pommer in 14th. Philippe Salaquada in 15th spot. Rene Rast could only manage, it was actually Will Stevens who did that final Q3, and he could only manage 16th quickest ahead of Bernd Schneider. Rodrigo Baptista and Philippe Albuquerque completing the top 18. So that's how qualifying looked. After a very entertaining session, it looked as though Felix Rosenquist was looking strong for a pole debut. He went quickest in the early stages, but couldn't quite keep the momentum up. For a brief time, Frank Pereira in the 74 ISR Audi was the man who took pole position, but his lap time was deleted for exceeding track limits, and that was a real shame for them. Will Stevens couldn't quite get up to speed in the 28 WRT car. He still will start 16th, a second slower than Laurens Vanthoor, who ends the session quickest of anyone, because before anyone could have one more run, the rain came. And what a performance from Vanthoor, picking up where he left off in the Blancpain GT Series on pole position. So now, John, it's just a chance to look forward to the race. The qualifying session over in a flash. and now we've got a great race coming up.
Yeah, a bit of race preparation. I'm mulling over what you've found out in these 3 effectively dry qualifying sessions. Whether it'll be dry this evening is another matter. And hopefully, everybody will be well behaved when the lights go out just before 9 o'clock tonight.
Yep, 10 to 9. Make sure you join us. The most competitive GT series in the world begins at 10 to 9 local time this evening. You don't want to miss it.